The brutality that we are witnessing in Ukraine is unfortunately nothing new for Vladimir Putin. In the Second Chechen War, Putin's first military conflict as Russia's leader, Russian forces leveled Chechnya's capital, Grozny. The destruction was so severe that 2 years later, the United Nations called the city the most destroyed city on earth. This photo of Russian soldiers planting a flag in the rubble of Grozny would become indicative of Putin's military strategy. Russia implemented similarly brutal measures when it entered Syria in 2015. In fact, a United Nations investigation in 2020 directly accused Russia of war crimes in Syria. Looking at two specific cases, the report concluded, quote, in both incidents, the Russian Air Force did not direct the attacks at a specific military objective, amounting to the war crime of launching indiscriminate attacks in civilian areas. Russia, of course, denied any responsibility. That UN report did not look at the rest of Russia's time in Syria, though, like the weeks-long bombing campaign on the city of Aleppo in the fall of 2016, which targeted a medical facility and killed 440 civilians, including 90 children, according to Human Rights Watch. Now it looks like Putin is using similar tactics in Ukraine. Cities like Mariupol have been under intense shelling for days that have destroyed residential areas, medical facilities, and killed civilians. The deputy mayor of Mariupol told The Guardian, quote, it's a war crime and pure genocide. Vladimir Putin means to capture Mariupol, whatever the human cost. Last week, a prosecutor for the International Criminal Court announced that he would open an investigation into the situation in Ukraine. So the ICC, it sits in The Hague in the Netherlands, and it has the jurisdiction to prosecute individuals for genocide, crimes against humanity, war crimes, and crimes of aggression. So as we watch Putin continue his brutal invasion of Ukraine, is there an avenue to hold him and others accountable under international law? Joining me now to answer questions like that is Gregory Gordon. He is a law professor at the Chinese University of Hong Kong. He is also a former war crimes prosecutor with the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda and the United States Department of Justice. Gregory, let's start with one of the most fundamental concepts here. We keep on hearing the phrase war crime being used, but what exactly is the definition of a war crime under international law?
You know, I like to make a distinction between war crimes as the popular imagination conceives them, which covers atrocity crimes generally, and the list that you just had there, crimes against humanity, genocide, war crimes, aggression. When the popular press talks about war crimes, typically it's those. But if you want to talk about war crimes specifically, those are violations of Article 8 of the International Criminal Court statute. And there are generally two categories. There are what we call violations of the law of Geneva and violations of the law of The Hague. Violations of the law of Geneva are crimes that are grave breaches, as they're called, and they're directed at people specifically, so willful killing, torture, things like that. And then the Hague law is methods and means. So when you're bombarding civilian neighborhoods, for example, and you're not following the rules regarding proportionality, right, and there's excessive collateral damage. So you have those general categories, and it looks like right now in Ukraine, all those sorts of crimes are being committed.
Well, I mean, neither Russia nor Ukraine are members of the ICC. I'm a former prosecutor, but, you know, if they're not even members, how is this going to impact a possible prosecution of Putin and Russia, for example?
Well, in the Rome statute, so the ICC's statute, which is a treaty, there is the possibility for a country to give jurisdiction on an ad hoc basis. Ukraine has done that under Article 12 of the statute. And in fact, in connection with Russian incursions in 2013 and 2014 in Crimea, for example, in eastern Ukraine, there was already a preliminary examination being conducted before this recent invasion of Ukraine. And the prosecutor concluded that there were grounds to believe that crimes had been committed. Then the invasion occurred. And on top of that, with the existing Article 12 jurisdiction that was there, you have now had over 40 nations join in referring a case to the ICC. And so what was happening before has now gone from a preliminary examination to an investigation. And additionally, what is happening right now, all the crimes that you're seeing through the images that we just saw, horrible, powerful images, those are now part of the investigation, which the referral by the states has made possible.
You yourself, you prosecuted Nazi war criminals. How would you, as a prosecutor, present a case to the court about the commission of war crimes and that situation in Ukraine as being perpetrated by Russia?
So there are two aspects that you want to generally look at. First of all, you want to collect evidence of what's happening in terms of, like I said, shelling, the way that civilians are being attacked. And then, additionally, you want to establish the way, the criminal modality. So it's easy to say, okay, there were crimes committed. Then the question is, who committed those crimes? And were they committed by a group of people? If they were committed by a group of people, what was the relationship between the group? Was there a chain of command? And then you want to look at the chain of command and go up. Ideally, you're going to go to the top. The International Criminal Court wants to prosecute those who are most responsible. So you want to establish the connection between the commanders and then the connection to Moscow. And hopefully you go all the way up to Putin.
Yeah, Gregory, I mean, Putin rules with an iron fist. I mean, what are the chances of there not being that direct causal link between Putin giving orders to be able to get things done and the atrocities that we're witnessing that are happening in cities like Mariupol?
Yeah, it's easy to look at these images and have a sense of indignation and think, my God, people need to be prosecuted. But as you know, as a prosecutor, when you're prosecuting these cases, the standard is beyond a reasonable doubt. And you have to meticulously chronicle the connection between these people. You do it in various ways. I mean, it could be through witnesses, it could be through documents, intercepts. The other thing that's going to be really important here, I think, is all of the social media capturing of images and the capturing of testimony that is going on right now. That will also be, in a way, there's kind of a revolution going on in evidence in these cases. And I think this case, I hope it will go to court, will probably be a real testing grounds for how social media evidence is used. So I think that whole combination of social media evidence, the relationship between the people who are commanding, the documentation of the shelling and the killing and all the things that you're seeing, that will all be put together, and then it will have to be proved beyond a reasonable doubt.
You mentioned the existence of evidence like social media videos from TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, for example. Is that as valuable evidence as even the maybe testimonial evidence from prisoners of war or people that are actually former Russian soldiers that are talking about the conduct and the acts that they committed when they were in Ukraine?
Yeah, I think it's probably not going to be as powerful in court, apart from the visceral power of it. Remember, if you go back to the Nuremberg trials, there was very powerful evidence of what was happening in the Nazi concentration camps. So film as far back as the Nuremberg trials in the 1940s was powerful evidence. This will be powerful evidence again, but in many respects, it will be corroborating evidence. So I think what you're going to want to do is have testimony, like you just mentioned. You'll have, I think, probably more concrete evidence. And then the social media evidence will kind of combine with that, and they'll authenticate one another. So I think the combination will be quite powerful. And that's why I said I think in some ways you'll see a revolution in the way evidence is presented in any trial that comes out of this case.
Gregory Gordon, thank you so much for your insight and for being with us this evening.
Hi, I'm Mehdi Hasan. Thanks for checking out our channel on YouTube. You can see more of the Mehdi Hasan Show by clicking on any of the videos on this screen, and make sure you subscribe below to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. Thank you for watching.